I try not to make too many videos about money or money conditions, but it is part of our life. It is a resource that in this reality we need to get by with. And so obviously if you study through the scriptures, there's many applications of things of how much we are supposed to sacrifice or how much we should give or should we plan for the future, etc. Well, if God has given us the book of Proverbs for our betterment, then one of the things that Proverbs teaches is that we should focus on being wise. We should look insightfully at things about us and to be able to begin to draw some conclusions. And so in the past, you have definitely heard me talk about we need to beware of digital currency. And you've heard me talk about the Fed coin that I believe that is going to be released here in 2023, or how if we put all of our resources into the digital hands, there will be this control over us that is not going to turn out well. And I just wanted to share with you another step in this process. One of our past government officials by the name of Sam Brownbank, who started the National Committee for Religious Freedom, went to the bank. So he's got this national foundation that he has started, and he's in high places, and he's running around trying to procure freedom for you and I, just overall religious freedom. And he goes to the bank, and as he's at the bank to either deposit or withdraw funds, they're like, "Oh, well, that account is closed." And he's like, "Do what? Excuse me. What do you mean the account is closed?" They're like, "Yeah, your account is closed." And he's like, I don't understand. And so he presses a little farther, and they go, "Well, if you'll give us some information, we need to know who gives over 10% of the income to your organization, and politically, who do you vote for, and where does your funding go? And then maybe, we'll get your money to you or get this thing straightened out." And he was actually told that as his account was closed, "We'll get your money back to you in a few weeks." Who has the right over your money to get it back to you in a few weeks? I know in my life, years ago, I had this mutual fund that I had invested in. I was, being aggressive in my savings, and I needed that income at one point. And as I went to get out of the bank, they were like, "Yeah, we'll get it to you." And it was weeks upon weeks upon weeks later. And so I understand this man's frustration if he was frustrated and concerned about it. But if someone has control of your money and they say, "We can get it to you in a few weeks, it's yours. We're not doing anything criminal here, but we're just going to inconvenience you by not giving your money right away." You need to understand as a Christian, as somebody that is trying to be insightful with your life, to have a little bit of wisdom here. There is very little difference between inconveniencing somebody by not giving them their money and wronging them by delaying the giving to them of their money. I believe this was actually a wronging. And this was by J.P. Morgan Chase, who did this to them. And since then, they have got this information out further. And they're like, "Listen, this will come against other Christians. You need to understand that this type of activity is coming." Now, already, you might not be aware of this, but there used to be tens of thousands of banks across the country. And the last I checked, there were under 2,000, and they are still merging and conglomerating as one bank buys out another bank. And as a bank gets too big, it doesn't know what to do with its money, so it consumes another, the smallest bank in the food chain. And basically, there's going to eventually be one sort of bank if this activity continues. And you'll know how problematic this is, because in our very guidelines for how we structure our country, we're like, monopolies are bad news. We can't have monopolies, but yet that's the direction banks are going. So as these banks continue to consolidate, and they have this digital power, and we already have a track record of them doing things like suspending the account of Sam Brownback. we have to be aware. We need to push back on these things. We need to say, hey, I'm not going to be a part of that. I'm not going to support this type of bank. I don't want to be involved in that. And we need to get behind the scenes and see what's going on. Now, this bank did issue an apology, and they were like, hey, we're sorry, and we issued a verbal apology and a written apology. But that's not okay. Maybe this doesn't concern you because it hasn't happened to you yet, but this is the way you comprehend things, and the way you get true insight is put yourself in this man's shoes, put yourself in this religious organization's shoes, and just imagine going to the bank and your funds being cut off because of who you voted for, or that because you were pro-life you got defunded, or because you gave to a church that spoke out against a certain evil in the culture, that your accounts were cut off. You need to imagine that this kind of thing is coming. And if you don't think people would do this to you, well, would Satan do this to you? Are you reading enough in the scriptures to understand how that everything is consolidating down to this, and there is a power struggle between good and evil? It's already raising its head. You need to beware, and you need to be prepared.